Mark your calendar now for June 6th. On that day, The Lost Century and How to Reclaim It will be released. This is a film that documents the suppression of viable non-fossil fuel energy sources and provides a blueprint of how we can solve the environmental crisis. For more information, go to this website, www.seriousdisclosure.com. That's www.seriousdisclosure.com. If you're not watching us live on YouTube, you're missing a lot. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel and become a Night Dreamer. Coming to you from the Night Dreams Talk Radio Network newsroom, I'm Guy Ticker with The Strange News. In 1961, a bizarre incident occurred in Eagle River, Wisconsin, USA. A local resident named Joe Simonton claimed that he had met an alien who gave him 4 pancakes. I'm Guy Ticker. The Strange News is brought to you by Night Dreams Talk Radio Network. Do you have a strange story? Contact us at nightdreamstalkradio.com. Once again, coming to you live from the Night Dreams Talk Radio studios, it's Gary Anderson and friends.
And our own astronauts, who were all highly commissioned officers, were not told. And when they got to the moon, not only did they find that there were extraterrestrial activity, but there was also activity from our own planet.
Gary guarantees you get all the inside info, unlike our astronauts.
They were not told and not informed, and all of this is kept under wraps. And that's a good reason why we didn't go back to the moon after Apollo 17, and that is because we did not want more seeing eyes to possibly expose already what had been exposed so much.
Okay, well, here's a man who loves exposure. Gary Anderson!
Well, we made it to Thursday. I can't believe it. Can you believe that, JC, that a farmer gave 4 pancakes to an ET?
I remember that story when it came out. Matter of fact, they actually... were you talking about the old story or the recent one? That's what I should ask.
The recent one. I don't care about old stuff.
That one I didn't see. No. A
UFO landed out in a farmer's pasture, and a ET got out and told the farmer he was hungry, so he was making pancakes, and he gave 4 pancakes to an ET. And a bottle of muscatel to wash it down. I'll tell you that. Do you believe that part?
Yeah, that's the guy that's going to be running for office somewhere.
Well, why not? Can we do anything worse?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
I really don't.
You know, I think I should run for president.
Yeah.
Why not? But I'm not going to get very fast at 71 years old. What is your name again?
Oh. Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And you might want to drive there. You can run and you'll get out of breath real quick.
Well, I get out of breath running 1 foot.
I know.
You ever tried run anywhere with 1 foot?
It's more of a hopping thing, I find, but yeah, it's rough.
Well, we got Marcus Allen on, and we're going to talk about, well, the moon. Some strange things about it. Are we being lied to? I think we're constantly being lied to. Well, Marcus, I want to welcome you back to the show, my friend. How are you doing?
Hello, Gary, and hello, fellow night dreamers as well. Good to be back. Thank you for your kind invitation.
Well,
much appreciated.
You're like a part of the show. I mean, you've been on sometimes more than JC is. He's there, but he's not coherent a lot.
Well, it's good to know that there are people out there who are interested in what we have to say.
What is going on the moon? Do you think, honestly, we supposedly went to the moon, but, being in electronics, my father was a engineer down at Boeing who developed electronics for aircraft when he was there, and he was working on the SST electronics when they decided not to make it. But here's the thing, I talked to my father quite a bit about this. Could we actually have the equipment to reach the moon with a computer? And he said the computers were not capable of that at that point. A computer to have enough, information, the thinking capability would almost been about the size of the spacecraft they were in.
That's right. Computers were a bit crude back in the 1960s.
Yeah.
They were the size of rooms, and they had valves, and they were basically not very advanced pieces of equipment.
No, so I just sometimes really think, I don't think we actually went to the moon. I don't want to offend anybody. You can think we went to the moon. We all have a right for our own, opinions. But, again, what is going on? Just in the news the other day, they were talking, they found a metallic substance on part of the moon, and it's supposed to be huge.
Well, I'm not quite sure about that. I haven't seen very much information about that particular thing yet. But if there is, maybe it's part of a crashed rocket, because there were plenty of rockets that crashed into the moon. Maybe it's one of those.
Well, they said it's miles big. That's what was interesting. Again, this was in a science journal.
Well, it could be, because there's a fairly strong evidence that the moon is artificial.
Yeah.
Built by E.T. probably, or somebody who decided to put the moon where it is. It's in a very strange position relative to Earth. It's an almost perfect circular orbit, and it appears to allow life to exist on Earth. And maybe there are people in the moon. Maybe it's a hollow sphere, which is unusual for a planetary object to be hollow. But if it is hollow, because it's much lighter than Earth, and you'd think, well, it should be much heavier because it's smaller, but it hasn't got an iron core. So maybe it was created deliberately, placed in orbit to allow life to exist on Earth. Life as we know it. Because what happens if you take the moon away? Well, there'd be no tides, most people would say. Well, that's probably true. But if you've got the moon there, it's in a very weird orbit. It keeps one face towards Earth at all times. So maybe E.T. can go in and out of the back and not get noticed. And its size is particularly strange in that it totally eclipses the sun, which is a lot further away. So the moon is 400 times smaller than the sun, but it's 400 times closer. So when we see it from Earth, we see it as a total eclipse when the moon gets between the Earth and the sun. That's a very strange thing. Very, very weird that it would be that accurate. It's almost as if E.T. has said, right, we're going to make it so that when man is intelligent enough to see what is going on, he'll realize that he's not alone in the universe. And he is going to be wanting to find out who built the moon.
That's interesting.
I mean, maybe somebody did build the moon, which we don't know who it is, but whoever it was highly intelligent. So sort of rather like E.T., because he's supposed to be quite intelligent as well. He's far too intelligent to show himself, because all he can see of humans is that they keep killing each other, and fighting wars, and behaving in a very unprofessional way.
Well, let's just hope these people who say that ETs will never allow a nuclear war on our planet, because we're getting close to World War III, and that will be with nuclear exchanges. Let's hope they can stop it. But I don't buy that. Honestly, I don't buy that theory. And the theory I think about, if you go back to ancient humans, you look at the pyramids, you look at the Sphinx, then you look at the the tales about Atlantis. You look at the Mayas, you look at the Incas, and all these civilizations. It makes me wonder, were they developed? Were they brought here by ETs? And somehow, maybe, again, the moon is connected with our civilization, going back from the very start.
It could well be, because it makes much more sense that there is something in our history, in human history, on this planet, that we're not fully aware of. It's like we're the famous phrase, we're a race with amnesia. It's as if something catastrophic happened. And when something catastrophic happens to individuals, they can forget what it was that happened. They lose their memory, i.e. they have amnesia. They don't recall what the event was. Maybe it's something that was so disastrous for humans that we've lost our memory of what actually happened. Maybe there was a cataclysm. The Younger Dryas impact event, maybe that is something that is up in the category of creating amnesia.
You're right.
May well be the case.
Well, hey, Marcus, we're out of time. I want to thank you for coming on. How can they find and subscribe to Nexus Magazine?
Right. Nexus Magazine, your required reading for this century.
Yes.
Go to nexusmagazine.com. That will give you all the information you need about Nexus, what it is, who runs it. It's run by one person, Duncan Rhodes, who's the editor of Nexus. He lives in Australia. I distribute the UK edition of Nexus, UK and Europe edition. So nexusmagazine.com will give you the information you need. If you want to find a copy, go to a Barnes & Noble bookshop. You'll find them on sale there as well.
Very good read. If you're into science and UFOs and all that stuff, that is a magazine to get your hands on. Again, you can go even to our website, nightdreamstalkradio.com. You can just go to the link, click on to Nexus Magazine. It'll take you right to their website. Hey, Marcus, we'll get you on here in the next month or two for like an hour, and we'll just have fun again.
We'll do that. There's lots to talk about.
Okay, my friend, you have a good one.
Thanks, Gary. Bye-bye.
Bye. We'll be back with Derrel Sims. We're going to talk about ETs, implants, and all that here on Night Dreams Talk Radio. So stay tuned.
I've been trying to move a mountain on my way to get to you. Skinny dipping in an ocean blue. It's an uphill kind of battle to make you see my point of view. Is it worth it? I ain't got a clue. Sometimes you shoot yourself in the foot not to go to Vietnam.
Once again, it's Gary Anderson coming to you live. He is live, right? Okay. Live from the Night Dreams Talk Radio studios, just in time for ET UFO month. And you know what that means.
We're expecting to get some very interesting news about the possibility that relics from extraterrestrial technological civilizations might be near us.
And you know Gary and his pals are going to make sure the hidden gets revealed. That's how this current quest got started.
When a few multi-billionaires came to the porch of my home and gave me a few $1 million, and whatever we find will reveal, it will be open data, it will not be secret.
Sure, because you know when Mr. Anderson's involved, nothing stays secret.
It makes no sense to prevent it from being known to all humans, because eventually,
Without question, thanks to Gary,
people will learn about it.
So now, get ready to blast off and know the unknown with your host, the one, the only, Gary Anderson.
And we are back with Derrel Sims. I'll tell you what, again, is the moon hollow? Was it put there by ETs? Did we start out our whole world, our civilizations? Were they, well, could we have been bred by ETs? I don't know. Well, Derrel, how are you doing, my friend? And are you staying out of trouble?
Staying off the ropes.
I'll tell you, I don't know. ETs, what do you think is going on? Is there people more being abducted? I get a lot of emails from people saying there is a lot of abductions going on. Is it picked up again?
I've never noticed it actually slowing down. The fact is that I get notes all the time from people telling me that everything's slowed down because the alien has done. I don't know who has these untried tracks on what the alien does. I guess they call them and tell them, but they don't call and tell me that because my abduction correspondence is consistent and it's high as it always has been.
How do you weed out the people that maybe are on medication or should be on medication to the people that you feel that really have been abducted and implanted?
Well, we have a whole process that we put people through. Generally, people contact me by email, generally with a particular problem they're having or they can't figure out what's going on in their life. And one lady wrote this last week, and she has a family that's having difficulties as well, and she's found out that that's gone on through 3 generations of her family. So if she's making it up, the rest of the family's got to be making up for the last 80 years, so to speak. So in those cases, I like to look for physical evidence of these cases, and that's just the basis of which we begin. And physical evidence to me is a key card into playing this game. And if there is evidence, if you've had real contact by an alien and you've physically been taken, there's evidence on, around, or in you.
Okay, what type of evidence, I mean, what do you look for implant? I mean, how do you verify that somebody is actually implanted?
Well, implantations are actually quite real, and they're also quite rare. Our evaluations through different universities and other institutions have shown the implant, in fact, is real. But the fact is that most people that contact me that are real abductees think they have been implanted or chipped, as a lot of people call it. And I kind of laugh when I hear that. The first question I ask for is medical evidence. You have medical evidence of MRIs, CAT scans, X-rays of your claim. And again, most of these people don't have that because which to me tells me that they're guessing about, they've had maybe a UFO experience, but they don't know how to explain it. And the best way for them to get my attention is say the word implant or something. That doesn't necessarily mean anything to me. I look at hundreds of X-rays every year, and almost none of them have actual alien implants in them.
How about like Timothy Cullen, that Dr. Lear removed the implant with him? Are you familiar with his case at all?
Just barely familiar with it. Actually, Roger didn't remove the implant from him. In fact, what people don't realize is I was Roger's mentor. He was a foot doctor. He wasn't allowed to remove anything from anybody except from the ankle and below. And most of these people had implants in their hands or different parts of their body. We hired doctors to come in and do that. And he would place himself in front of the camera so it would look like he was doing that, but he actually wasn't.
Interesting, too. Again, it just makes me wonder, how many implants, like Whitley Strieber claims that he's implanted. And from talking to him, I really think something is implanted with him.
It's entirely possible. Again, for me, the bottom line is to review these people, and I do that in a very specific way to help your audience out here. Perhaps what we do is quite a bit different. I use various hats in my work, and for instance, I use 7 different hats. The UFO hat is one that I'd refer to everybody as wearing one. Everybody's got a UFO hat. The problem with the UFO hat is it often gets fooled. It actually believes alien implants or tracking devices, transponders, and will buy into all kinds of conspiracies. Depends on what the latest one is. The fact is that the UFO hat can get fooled. It's been fooled, and I just don't trust it. So being an ex-cop, I like that cop hat better because it doesn't necessarily believe your story. It believes your facts. And then there's a medical hat that we use, which uses a Bayesian logic, which is doctors' logic that they use in evaluating you. Then we use, when we find actual evidence like an implant, science hats come on, so to speak, because there we're using the science realm to get our information. And then we have a fifth hat, which is called the intelligence hat. It's different than all the other hats because it really wants to know what's going on beyond the cover story. And it's something the intelligence community uses, so to speak. This last two hats are Native American Indian hat, which Native American Indian, Irish, Celtic, and Scottish people, 45% of these people with that background are abductees. When they call in, I already know a lot about these people if they're real abductees. The last hat is a spiritual hat, and this one can include, but is usually beyond religion, made or hosted by man, and it's more than psychic and intuition. It's a deeper look at the evidence. So all of those hats are in play when you ask a question here. I have to go through every one of those hats to see which one rings the bell, so to speak, really wants to comment on it. Because most people are only interested in the UFO hat and what the latest is on that. And that's fine, but that's not necessarily going to get you to discovery of any kind or anything with the implants. It's not going to get you anywhere at all.
No, and I don't see it. And I think people are too focused on right now UFOs. And I'm more concerned about abductions and implants and what is going on. Have you ever seen any of these implants?
I've conducted 27 surgical interventions from the United States to India. And the last one was actually in Houston, Texas, not long ago. But the point is that the objects that we've retrieved from these people, not all these surgeries produce alien implants. They do produce some really interesting stuff, but the ones that have produced alien implants in our viewpoint, based on our definition, the implants are remarkable. Again, when you send it off to medical, the results come back usually, that's impossible. How can this be? And with the science, when it gets done with it, it's, again, the same thing. It's impossible, or that we just don't understand this. How can that be? And those are the kind of answers I like to hear when we're talking about the actual alien implant being looked at by these other hats.
Now, Timothy Collins sent me a picture, supposedly, of his implant. It looked like a grain of rice almost. What do these implants look like? I know they probably vary, but how big are they? And, do they send any RF out of them or any of that type of stuff?
Well, we hear this all the time from people that RF signals are coming out of various implants and things like that. The true story behind that, and it doesn't mean that it isn't true, I'm just saying that we have no actual record of that. The reason I say that is when the story first came out, we were doing two surgeries. One was on the foot, one was on the hand in 1995 in Camarillo, California. And Roger pulled out a little Gauss meter, a really cheesy little Gauss meter. It's about $15 to buy it. And he says, "Oh my God, I'm getting all kinds of information for this implant, And I said, "Roger, we're in a metal building with metal everything, with all kinds of equipment. That thing's going to pick up everything in the world in here." "No, this is from the implant." And so that story caught on like wildfire. So everybody thinks we were getting alien messages from an implant back in 1995. That simply was not the case in that particular case.
Very interesting. Now, Derrel, we need to take like a 2-minute break for the station, so stay tuned. We'll be back with Derrel Sims. We're talking about abductions. Not like the ones driving down the street to see you and throw you in the back of the van. Of course, maybe the ETs do that too, but we'll be right back, so stay tuned.
Captain Paul Watson was a co-founder of the Greenpeace Foundation in 1972 and the founder of Sea Shepherd in 1977. In 2022, he was forced out of Sea Shepherd in a hostile takeover. So, he established the Captain Paul Watson Foundation to carry on the work they've been doing for half a century with the specific strategy of aggressive nonviolence, which means aggressive intervention without killing or injuring anyone. They took the name he created and the logos he designed, but they couldn't take away his life's mission. The Foundation will carry on. This summer, with their new ship, the John Paul DeJoria, they intend to intervene against the Icelandic slaughter of endangered fin whales. And in 2024, they plan to be in the Southern Ocean Whale Sanctuary to stop the return of Japanese whalers who will be defying the International Court of Justice. They have one ship, but they need 2 more. Please visit paulwatsonfoundation.org to become a monthly donor. By becoming a monthly donor, you can help grow their Navy and help save our oceans. We don't survive on this planet with dead oceans. If the oceans die, we die. Please visit now www.paulwatsonfoundation.org. Coming to you live from the Night Dreams Talk Radio studios. Buckle up, Buttercup. It's gonna get bumpy.
Well, I have a source high up in SETI that confirms to me that they, in fact, have received interplanetary signals.
It's Gary Anderson, the one and only Inside Info impresario.
Not normal array. It was kind of a pulsed array, and that it was kept secret and covered up. The SETI people are furious.
And now, get ready to blast off.
The guy who told me that was the founder of the SETI project. A man who had been one of Carl Sagan's best friends, the best man at his wedding.
Of course, because with Gary, there are billions and billions of possibilities. And now, here he is, the one, the only Gary Anderson.
And we are back. And yes, they broke the mold when I was born. I'd guarantee you that one. At least my mother did. She just threw it down and said, no more. I don't want any more kids after him. Anyway, Derrel, we are back. Again, a lot of people are, like I said, contacting me, claiming that they're being abducted. And, this goes in cycles. All of a sudden I get all these people. It's Bigfoot, Bigfoot, Bigfoot. Then all of a sudden it's UFOs. And it goes back and forth and back and forth. But, some of these people come out with some really scary stories, that, claim that they were taken on board, they were experimented on. What do you really think is going on with these abductions? And why would they keep abducting people? Wouldn't they have enough meat from us by now? Why would they have to keep doing it?
Well, my personal thinking on this is a little different than a lot of the people. I've been doing this work for over 50 years, and I don't ascribe to the idea that basically that the aliens are abducting people to study us for genetics and so on and so on. Look, I could take any group of people to Mars or anywhere else if NASA and those boys put me on the craft with them, and I take if there were any people there on that planet or any other planet or this planet as an example, you can take a handful of DNA specialists and determine within a very short period of time pretty much the makeup of this planet. And why in the world the alien needs to be doing this over and over and over for at least 150 years, I doubt that's the case at all. In my opinion, those are red herrings. That's just something to keep you occupied about what you think they're doing. The fact is, they're up to other agendas, in my opinion.
What type of things do you think they could possibly be up to?
Well, one of the things is one of the problems I think we have is everybody uses the term alien, and no one even is identified what that is yet. In other words, it's a little gray guy, or it's a taller gray guy, or whatever. But we've taken all of the so-called aliens, the 7 primary culprits in these abduction scenarios that are the most common, and we've analyzed them, again, putting on the medical hat as an example. And when you do that, you come up with a totally different story than well, they've got to be doing this for our DNA because they need DNA because their DNA was destroyed on their planet. But first of all, when you look at the first alien right off the bat, the little gray, many of the people I've worked with over a period of time realize that the little gray has got an IQ of about 80. That's a moron. Now, why in the world would I think he was made, hatched, cloned, or manufactured for that specific purpose with that IQ. And many abductees point to the fact that he can't get your clothes on right. He puts you in the wrong location. Sometimes puts you outside your house where you had a key tumbler lock on your house. In other words, you have to have keys to get in and keys to get out. And they were taken out of the house, but they were dropped off outside the house. Now you got to beat on the door to wake up your wife or somebody to open the door because you don't have any keys to get in. So the question is, how does someone, quote unquote, from Zeta Reticuli or some other great place like that make stupid mistakes like that? Another quick case in point is a little girl was taken in an abduction the same time a military guy was. She had to leave earlier. When they took her back, the little gray gave her big oversized green field jacket of the military guy. And of course, she came home with that. And her parents were like, "Where in the world did you get that?" I don't know. And the guy, I'm sure, had a little tiny T-shirt about 2 foot big. How do you wear that?
Very carefully.
Gosh.
That's how.
Some of it's kind of funny, but when you look at all the aliens in that lineup that I call the usual suspects, you realize that the DNA of each one of them could have easily come from planet Earth. Every one of them.
Interesting. And again, what is the worst horror story you heard of on abduction, or a couple of them?
Well, some of the ones that are the most troubling, of course, the presentations I do for doctors is a good example. I don't do them publicly because they're just too graphic, and people are going to be judgmental. And when you show it to a doctor, they're looking at it from a Bayesian logic point of view, and so on. But when you're looking at human mutilations or animal mutilations is bad enough, but when you're looking at human mutilations, it gets off the charts because you have to ask yourself a question like. People say, "Well, I've already seen that Wataspanga case down in Brazil." I said, "I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about 2 dead children in Dallas, Texas, who died as a result of their abduction encounters. Or I'm talking about a lady who was skinned alive in her bed in Brazil, and an elderly woman. Now, what scientific experiment do you suppose they needed to do to skin her alive? And we know she was alive when she was skinned."
Do you think they do it to torture, just to see how we respond?
No, I don't think that's it at all. I think the reason they do some of these things, because many abductees will talk about things that are extremely uncomfortable for them, and a real abductee, it normally takes me 3 or 4 conversations before they'll finally start telling me what's really going on with them, and it's really disturbing in many cases. Some of the events are torture in some cases. Some are not. Some are very. It depends on what program they've got you in. But in a number of these programs where the abductees are calling in, they describe enormous emotions are being flushed out of them, so to speak. One lady, it destroyed their whole family. And the lady came to me about a year later and asked me to work with her, and I did. And she was crying to no end. She said she had been sexually molested by this alien being, and she asked for help about it. She said, "What do I do?" And I said, "Well, I'm going to tell you what I've not told other people, because I don't think I'll ever see you again, and I think you actually need an answer." I said, "He has no genitalia. He has no interest in you physically or sexually. It's his job he's ordered to retrieve these emotions from you. And this particular emotion was going to be sexual." And she cried like a baby. I mean, she's a very a good lady, a Roman Catholic, really moral lady, and she just cried and cried and cried about what went on. And I said, for your information, I said, I'm going to give you a metaphor about what this is all about. And she said, okay. And I said, he has no idea what to do with your emotions other than you need to think of the alien who did this as a tape recorder, so to speak. He's going to carry that information, the full emotions, all of it, back to someone else who will who knows how to, and will exploit it for his own purpose or pleasure, a drug, so to speak, some higher being.
Yeah, but they don't really then think too much about us humans, do they? To do torture, peel the skin off a lady in Brazil, for example, and the two children it died from their abduction. I mean, it makes me just sick that this is going on, and you know, everybody's wanting answers from Congress about UFOs. Why aren't they talking about cattle mutilation and human mutilation? I had some pictures of the one in Brazil and some other pictures of mutilations of humans. And I'll tell you, it turned my stomach to a point. I had it on my hard drive, and I literally threw the hard drive away and had to put another hard drive on because I kept going back and studying it. It just nauseated me that regardless what life is out there, what they think that little of us to put people through that.
That's true, you know, and it's again, that's what we have different hats for. The medical looks at the medical aspect of it. The science looks at the science part of it. The intelligence hat looks at it totally differently. It wants to know literally what's going on beyond the cover story, beyond what the science and even the medical people, what they think about it. In other words, if the CIA were to look at this phenomena, and they do, I assure you they're looking at it with a different hat than you are, and they're coming up with totally different answers than you and I are, so to speak. It's just, and I'll give you a case and example. A professor out of Stanford, I don't know his name right offhand, he was on several TV shows recently, and he made some astounding statements. One of the ones was that the CIA were sending him large amounts of files, MRIs, from military people who had contact with these UFOs, either in flight or on ships. And they had lesions in their brain. And of course, the real question one has to ask is, how many of those lesions do you think you can take before you're no longer able to fly or your career's over? That's assuming you live. And apparently 100 of these cases, the people did not live.
Wow. Now, can I ask you a question? Could these maybe not be ET? Could it be governments of the world, different parts of the government experimenting on people?
You can't rule anything out until you look at all the evidence. Sure, that's possible. But I argued with a dear friend of mine who is a I'm a cop, and really good man. And we were arguing 1994 when I was doing a presentation for 250 surgeons and doctors on medical complications of alleged human alien contact, specifically implants. This was before we did any surgeries at all. And when I met with him privately, we were talking about the cattle mutilations, and he asked me all kinds of questions. What do you know about them? And I said, well, you're the expert. Anyway, we're both a couple of ex-cops. None of that worked at all. He came after me with a meat hook and pinned me down and said, I want to know what you know about cattle mutilations. And I said, well, in my opinion, there are at least 4 different kinds. One of them they do, one of them we do, and that means the intelligence community, and so on and so on. I said, those are the 2 most important ones. And he said, well, I think it's all the military. It's all. And I said, well, I take a little bit of angst to that. I said, I'm prior military myself. I would have never done this nor been part of it. So I know a lot of other people that wouldn't either. I said, I know there are people that might, and I understand that. But the intelligence community is not the military. They sometimes use the military, but the intelligence people will do all kinds of things. I mean, they have in the past, and they will in the future. if their past is any illustration of what they're capable of. And that's all intelligence communities, from the Chinese, the Russians, to the Israelis. It makes no difference. They're going to do whatever they think is necessary to get the job done. So my illustration to him was, it's the intelligence community is responsible for this. He said, no, it's the military, blah, blah, blah. And I said, well, and even then I said, the intelligence community is often watching the aliens see what they're doing, to see exactly how far ahead they are and what they're up to. And it's, well, I know, he just argued it. And finally he said, you got a case, make it. And I said, all right. I said, don't make me embarrass you in front of God and the rest of the world. And he said, make your case. And I said, well, tons of meat fell out of the air, out of the sky. In this one particular case, tons of meat. Some of it was animals, some of it cattle, different things. Some of them were human. Some of it was parts of hearts and lungs, thinly sliced. He said, it still doesn't mean it wasn't the intelligence community or the military. And I said, that was in the 1880s. Who in the CIA do you think did that?
Yeah, that is really scary when you think about things like that. You know, again, a lot of this stuff doesn't compute. I'm confused. You know, our own governments, I remember when I was in grade school, was giving the students toothpaste, which we thought we didn't realize till years later, like, God, 40 some years went by. All of a sudden they said, well, the toothpaste you got, they admitted to some of it, or it came out, was radiated. They wanted to see what it would do with kids brushing their teeth with radiated toothpaste. And then over Seattle, they dropped the radiation over the city and other cities to see what would happen if there was a nuclear exchange. I mean, I wouldn't put the government or agencies past anything.
Well, the problem is they've got a huge budget and there's no real oversight. To me, I used to be in the CIA. I was a little. I never was anybody important in the intelligence community. But my point is that oversight needs to be done on a civilian level. And when that doesn't happen, you could lose control, literally, of your country overnight. I mean, we're finding out now that one of the things that bothers me, and I'm not being political here, I'm just commenting on your comment, in the last election, 51 intelligence people came forward and said the Hunter Biden laptop it had the earmarks of a Russian disinformation.
Yeah.
So the fact is, now we know that wasn't true, and they all signed off on it, and they knew, because they knew that it wasn't that. My point is, and I'm not being political here, I'm just saying that if they're capable of doing that on that level, and affecting a whole entire election process, what else are they capable of? That, it bothers me. It really does.
Well, even the FBI is corrupted. From today, was watching Fox. You know, one of the senators said, you know, that the FBI with Biden is not giving out information, and they were dragging their feet with Hunter Biden. You know, it's because people were put in office to run certain, agencies.
Well, it bothers me that, and I'm a former police officer and a former federal officer, and my point is that anytime that you hide evidence, I don't care which party it is, makes no difference to me. When you actually hide evidence of major crimes, this is, to me, the people who are hiding the crimes ought to be indicted themselves.
Well, yeah, they need to be, and maybe a couple of them will be. You know that in the very near future. Again, with some of these mutilations, what type of mutilations were they done with humans?
Well, some of the mutilations, as in the Waterspanga case, the man was found floating in the water, and by some fishermen, and they pulled him out, and this was a case some time ago, and the UFO guys took the evidence to these medical doctors and asked him to review his case. Of course, they couldn't figure out what these holes were doing in him and how his various organs were missing. And when there was no big, large cuts or anything, but it looked very similar to a cattle mutilation. where they took the jaw area loose and so on. And later, the UFO people, a friend of mine, AJ Gavad, down in Brazil, and others showed them pictures of cattle mutilations after they saw him mutilated, and they said, "Oh my gosh, that's the same type stuff," and that's a correct statement. It's done the same way, so to speak. That in that particular case, the guy had been in the water for 5 days. Now you got to understand, in Brazil, being in the water for 5 days, there's not going to be much of you left. The fact is, he was untouched by predation of the fish, nor was he affected on land by predation of animals, which is, again, fairly common with real alien involved mutilation cases.
Interesting. Again, the guy in Brazil, like his organs removed out of a hole, they said the size of a dime. I don't know any way they could do that unless they have way different technology than we have.
Well, that's possibly true. One engineer I worked with years ago, it took me 2 years to work with her because she said, "I don't believe." I filled out your forms and I find that out of 36 possible markers of an abductee, I matched 34 of them. I don't believe any of this. I think it's all stupid. And I said, okay. And 2 years later, about almost a year and a half later, she says, "I want you to work with me." I was out in Phoenix at the time, and I said, okay. And I worked with her, and right off the bat, I mean, this is the total non-believer, doesn't believe a word. And she describes in great detail, as they take her inside the ship, in a room to the right, there is a mutilation of a cow going on, and he's alive when they're doing it. Yeah. And she remembers that as a little girl.
Yeah, that's the thing. Back 2 years ago in Oregon, a famous pathologist, checked out a cattle mutilation that went on. And he said the same thing, that, these mutilations are going on while the animal was still standing. And it was because the eyes removed, the liquid between the eyes and the brain ran out all the way to the nostril and dripped down, which tells that the animal was actually standing when it went on. Could you imagine they're inflicting massive pain on humans and cattle and all this stuff? That's the part it tells me they don't care about us.
Well, the fact is that one of the problems is with the UFO community, in my view, is that we equate and give anthropomorphic values to the alien that he simply doesn't have. First of all, if he's made, hatched, cloned, or manufactured to do a job, which I think that's true, if that's the case, he's just going to do whatever he's supposed to do, and that's the end of it. The second thing is it doesn't matter if he's instructed to treat you like the best thing since sliced bread and tell you that you're special, you're unique, and all that. He will, and he'll make you feel loved and nurtured and cared for in the best way possible. But we've had the same alien working with someone else, another abductee of mine, the same alien, actually torturing another one. It doesn't matter. They're just doing their job. Whoever instructs them or is in charge, that's the one that's the guilty party, so to speak. And that's the disturbing part of it. And some of these mutilations, the pain, the agony, passions of enormous kinds, human or animal, are harvested literally by these beings for some unknown purpose. In my opinion, probably to be used for someone else to use like a drug.
Well, I was thinking it was going to be consumed. That's my feeling.
Possible. I don't know.
That's why, Derrel, I carry barbecue sauce in my back pocket. I mean, what better thing? I'm being prepared for my own barbecue. I don't know. It's really interesting because, again, I don't believe everybody, Derrel, that claims that they've been abducted, but there's a certain percentage. I've listened to their stories, and I really, like Whitley and a whole bunch of other ones, something is going on. Whitley says he was molested while he was sleeping, here recently when he was on the show. Again, a lot of things are going on. I get emails from women that say that they've been abducted. They went to bed, and the next thing they know, they're on a craft, and they're being molested on the craft. I don't know what the purpose of these creatures, these aliens, or whatever you want to call them. That's the scary part.
One of the most interesting cases I've got is a case, we've got several hospital cases. In other words, the events happened in the hospital. One of the most profound of those cases is a case, it happened in a major hospital. And what happened is 5 nurses, all female, were given control over this woman who is, and I'm not making pejorative statements here. I'm just illustrating the purpose of this. The patient was a lesbian woman who was in coma, so she doesn't know anything. She's in a glass room with these 5 nurses, and they're all in an enclosed, controlled environment. The nurses, out of respect for the lady, wanted only female nurses to be present during the work they did with her, which was excellent. I thought it was a good choice. All of those ladies that night, the camera went off because they checked it, because looks like it was going to a major lawsuit. All those ladies ended up pregnant. All the nurses and the lesbian woman in coma, all of them ended up pregnant. And that is just, you hear these stories from abductees from time to time, but the fact is that happened to 5 of them in a hospital, and the lesbian patient who was in coma at the time, all again under controlled environment.
That is really scary. Hey, our time is up. What do you want to share? Anything you want to, got a couple minutes? Go ahead and share anything.
I do. For those that would like to contact me about their events, you're welcome to go to thealienhunter.com. And when you go to thealienhunter.com, you go to the bottom there, and it will email me automatically when you click on the Alien Hunter. Answer all my emails, and I will take your information under advisement very carefully. And you can see videos of actual alien implants, and even photographs and things, and all kinds of interesting stuff on the site. So I'm glad to be on your program tonight. Gary, you're just, I appreciate your time and your humor, and it's been a pleasure.
My friend, you take care and have a great weekend that's coming up.
Thank you so much.
Okay, you take care, my friend. Well, JC, what guests do we have coming up?
We've got a lot of good guests coming up, Gary. Let me tell you, a lot of good ones. Matter of fact, starting tomorrow, we got William Warwick coming on. Okay, now he's going to talk about UFOs and military, and what are they covering up, Gary?
Interesting.
Yeah, very much so. Now we get into next week. We've got James Clarkson coming back on. Now, he is known as the UFO detective. He's going to talk about a few cases that have law enforcement had some run-ins with some UFOs. So that ought to be very interesting. Now, you get on to the 11th, we've got Jonathan Dover coming on. Now, he is a retired 30-some years of a policeman and a ranger on the reservation. He has seen, you name it, UFOs, aliens, cryptids, all, coinciding together for many years. So he's got a lot to tell there. And then on the 12th, Gary, we have the Space Cat come on. She is the galactic whistleblower. She just hopes she can help, save some people with what she's experienced. Maybe help somebody with her experiences.
And then the following couple of weeks, we have some really top heavy hitters coming on. So make sure you tune in to the show Wednesday to Friday. And coming up here, not this weekend, but the following weekend, we have the Hitman. and he's going to be talking ghostly things in the paranormal with great guests. Now, again, go to our website. You can look at all the upgrades we've done to the website. You can see everything, a little bit of bios on each of our guests for the next 2 weeks. That's at www.nightdreamstalkradio.com. I hope you all enjoy the show. If you're watching us on YouTube, please subscribe to the channel. Very important. Give us a thumbs up and hit that bell so you're notified when we're on. Well, again, also, Subspace Odyssey, we're now on that too. Now, they're going to run our replays between Thursday, Friday, and Saturday at 11 o'clock in the morning. So check them out. You can go to our website and click on it and go right to them. Well, till tomorrow, everybody have a good one. Stay out of trouble.